Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Dear colleagues, dear panelists, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me to welcome you to this side event organized as a part of the 28th meeting of National Mine Action Directors and United Nations Advisors. Coming from Burkina Faso, a country facing a growing threat from improvised explosive device IEDs, mainly used by terrorist armed groups, I am particularly pleased to see this event take place. Like other state parties committed to the fight against IEDs, my country, which currently holds the presidency of the Victim Assistance Committee, is actively engaging in a cooperative efforts to support its national initiatives. In the face of persistent threats posed by mines and other explosive devices, it is now more crucial than ever to promote concrete, humane, and context-appropriate responses for affected communities, including those experiencing the proliferation of IEDs. Too many times, these incidents occur in remote and resource-limited areas where health services are limited or non-existent. In such contexts, injuries that could otherwise be treated become fatal simply due to a lack of timely care. However, it is possible not only to prevent these incidents through awareness of explosive risks, but also to reduce the damage caused by such incidents by equipping affected communities with vital first aid training. This side event will present an innovative service delivery model that combines prevention through explosive ordnance risk education and immediate response via the training of community first aid responders, CFAR. This model aims to strengthen community resilience by equipping the most exposed populations with the skills needed to act effectively in the critical first minutes or to provide emergency care in the event of an explosion-related injury while waiting for professional medical staff to arrive. Today, we have the privilege of welcoming panelists. We will share insights from various contexts affected by the threat of explosive devices, especially IEDs. Whether from Burkina Faso, Mozambique, Myanmar, or Syria, the common goal is to save lives. So, after saying this, I'm honored to introduce them. First, we have Ms. Christelle Loup-Forest, head of the United Nations Mine Action Service office in Geneva. She will share a global perspective on integrating emergency health care into mine action strategies. Mr. Sebastian Kazak, field expert with MEG, will present the integrated for EORE model, its training methodologies, and initial results. Professor Lee Willis, emergency physician and WHO program leader, will offer a global view of medical responses to explosive injuries. Dr. Anna Weld, humanitarian physician and co-developer of the CFAR pilot project in Burkina Faso, Colonel Major Sanou Fatogma Ansel, Permanent Secretary of the SPCNCA in Burkina Faso, will provide institutional and operational insights. Dr. Robin Jelum, Medical Coordinator for INPIE in Mozambique, will present results from the Mozambican context. Mr. Eric Ndaishimi, Program Officer at NPA, will share field experience in Mozambique. Ms. Marigan, Risk Reduction Specialist with Humanity and Inclusion, will discuss the situation in Myanmar. Ms. Itser Iti Prek-Maxi is the EORE Project Manager for Humanity and Inclusion in Thailand. Mr. Tim Gargan, Regional Coordinator for ELO Trust in Syria, will oversee the mining and awareness operation. And Ms. Mervat Hal, Syrian nurse and trainer, will empowering communities through first aid education. I sincerely thank you all for your commitment and invite you to follow the upcoming discussion with close attention. I hope they will pave the way for concrete and lasting actions to strengthen local capacity. I hereby officially declare this site open. Thank you.
Christelle, je vous donne la parole. Madame l'ambassadrice, merci beaucoup. C'est un honneur d'être ici avec vous. Je m'excuse d'être un petit peu en retard. Et merci beaucoup d'être avec nous aujourd'hui. Everybody, I hope everybody's okay. J'espère que tout le monde va bien. Is it okay if I speak English or do I need to translate a little bit? Est-ce que tout le monde comprend un peu l'anglais? Je peux parler en anglais? On n'a pas la traduction, mais je peux faire un petit peu des deux si nécessaire. Non? Ok. C'est parti pour l'anglais. Alors, très bien. Alors déjà, I want to tell you that...
C'est contagieux.
Just wanted to make sure, is everybody following? Maybe if I speak French and the transition, they will not even notice that I've switched language. It didn't work, Sebastian, you got it. No. Joke aside, so I think, the person who planted the seed for this initiative. And here are the people, here are the flowers who are taking it forward in already 4 countries, and I hope that next year it will be 8 people here, because we need to pilot that, or maybe even more. We need to pilot that in every country that has victims. I think you're from Syria, yes. Right? White Helmet, Syria. Next year, I want you on the podium. Yeah. No, I feel very strongly about this project. About 8 years ago, when I came to this job, I realized that there were so many victims, people killed, injured by those explosive ordnance. I was shocked. And I will tell you 2 very quick stories to show you the contrast and the injustice in access to health and trauma care in the world. About 12 years ago, there was an IED attack by a suicide bomber in Boston. Do you remember the marathon bombing? This awful event, all these runners. 300 people were injured. 2 people died, okay? About the same week, I got a letter, somebody sent me the letter, about a director of a hospital from Congo, DRC Congo. Thank you. Who said to UNMAS in Congo, I had 5 people who were injured in a remote area of Congo. When they arrived to the hospital, 3 were dead on the way to the hospital, and the 2 others died at the hospital because they couldn't get decent care. Look at those 2 stories. 100% dead, the others less than 1% who died in the Boston, right? Boston, DRC. This is not right. I'm a strong believer in justice. We need to do something to give people access to trauma care and to a chance to survive. So I decided to focus on this piece of victim assistance, which is, what people call the golden hour, which is a misnomer. And I really didn't know how to really do that. But, because I coordinate the Mind Action Area of Responsibility, I've talked to many organizations and many experts. And at the time, my co-coordinator was Elke Hottentot from HI. And we looked at this and we realized we need to give people a chance to survive. Let's focus on that. And somehow through, the connection network, here comes Hannah, who hears about this problem. And Hannah says, well, I'm actually interested in trying to address this and to increase the survival rate after accidents. And that's how it all started. I'm finished with my opening remarks.
How can we move the slides?
I am.
Okay.
Where do you want?
No, shall I start?
Yes, but we need to turn off the stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Sebastian Kasek. I work for Minds Advisory Group, and that's for the last 8 years. But before, I worked with UNMAS and for UNICEF did the victim assistance guidance, how to do victim assistance for specific on children and so on. So I've been engaged in VA as well. And when I heard the speech of Hannah here at the NDM 3 years ago, is it? Yeah. I thought, oh wow, that's it. So finally someone is picking up what was done like 20 years ago and then kind of died, the Trauma Care Foundation work, and testing it in Cambodia, Iraq, also Angola, and so on. So to do community first aid and try to improve the immediate response at the community level. That was successfully tested, but then died, as I said. And now I'm really happy. I think the international community has evolved, like the WHO, ICRC, etc., more on the same radar, that it is possible to work with communities. You don't just need to have a degree and wear a stethoscope around your collar. So we agreed and found ways to test it in the end in Burkina Faso, and you will explain more, Hannah, how this it's not that easy. You can't just take the training package and do it. So it's a lot of work to really apply it properly and reduce the time spent with the community, but still make it meaningful. So so we managed, and MAG is a demining organization, classically. So it was not so easy also sometimes with my colleagues to convince them, yes, let us do this. So the framing, maybe slides, I don't know, yeah. So, okay, so I want to put it in the context with MAG, what we do. So it's the explosive ordnance risk education, survey clearance, and so on, and limited support to victim assistance. And then the other arm of our work is small arms, light weapons, ammunition work. And that's like in Burkina Faso, that was more our entry actually with the government there. And we do also risk education about small arms, light weapons in Burkina. And now with the IED, improvised landmine contamination, we work also about the convention, of course, together with the other partners, UNMAS, etc. So the other part, what I wanted to mention is this. Yeah, the picture is, I think this is actually from Nigeria, but we are working in the Sahel region, and so how can we link our work with this work of victim assistance? So that's the question. And it's basically, the link is the community engagements, the community liaison work we do, and working with local partners. And it's also, there was another panel about access, so it's linked localization, capacity building, and national level. These are the key topics here. And we have local partners we have been partnering with, and they can help to reach the communities that are actually in an armed conflict area, working there, living there, and pretty much not accessible for expats. And so how can we bring training to these regions? That was the question. And so this link, it also includes community focal points, is the basis for that kind of work. But just on the slide, so victim assistance has this IMAS 1310, so the International Mine Action Standard, and it really delineates. I was part of developing that standard with Elke and others. So what's the role of mine action operators to support victim assistance? And so, of course, we can collect data, we can do advocacy, but we can also, when we do community liaison work, give advice, orientation, and better really referral to service providers. That's the minimum we can do. But when this opportunity came up now to support training on first aid, I thought that's another thing that we can do. So maybe your next slide. Then the advantage is that our staff is local. They know the local language. They know the local culture. They speak local languages. Often in Angola, my staff had 6 languages, and it's unbelievable. And so they select then with the local authorities the community focal points that are most trusted by the population. And we, of course, we need to be aware that basically the armed groups have their own people in the same village, or all that information during conflict, of course, goes to all sides, and we have to be aware of that. And so this sensitivity, I think, if you look at the risk education technical note on IEDs, it's one of the main points there. So to be really sensitive during conflict, where does the information go? And we don't want to do harm to the people who live in the area. So summarizing why community liaison and community focal points: trust, access, language skills, local culture. It's also a flexibility. Like we had the COVID situation, and we could rely completely on that network. I think we said the same about Gaza. Yeah? When there was no access at all, we had access to all these focal points. I mean, it was HI in this case. Yeah. So we can rely on the people on the ground. We can still reach them if the telephone was working and so on. But so that provides flexibility, and of course, it's also a cost factor. It's cheaper than flying in all these expats with huge insurances and so on. So next one. So
hello everyone, my name's Lee.
Yeah, I think that was my summary actually, because we have one more thing I can add. I mean, in countries where we do clearance, we have this also in the small arms light weapons with the destruction of huge stockpiles, etc., and stuff of ammunitions. We have paramedics, and I'm trying to convince my colleagues that they could do more than sit there and wait for the hopefully never happening accident of the deminers. And I think for the local, for these paramedics, it would be a wonderful job, at least once in a quarter, to provide a training to the communities. And I would love to, let's see, with other operators, to make that happen. And my guys are just nervous about insurances, and if we teach something, are we allowed to, and blah, blah, blah. So I think that needs to be in accordance, of course, with the local government, with the Ministry of Health, with the colleagues from the health department, etc. But it's possible. Let's just try it and do it, and don't stop before even just trying it. Okay, that's my contribution.
Thank you. The WHO has been working with us on development of this entire concept, and they are fully supportive of these pilot initiatives. Dr. Wallace apologizes he couldn't be here today in person, so his remarks are video recorded for this event specifically.
Hello everyone, my name's Lee Wallace. I'm the lead for emergency and critical care at WHO headquarters in Geneva. Thanks for the opportunity to be part of this discussion today and to let you know about our CFAR program, Community First Aid Response, and its utility for mine victims. We take an integrated approach to care delivery for all patients with emergencies, whether they're traumatic or medical in nature. And it's really in three parts. It starts in the community, goes through the pre-hospital based care, particularly in an ambulance service, and then through facility-based care. And what's not showing on this infographic is it links back into the community again, really with the aim of getting people back into productive and healthy lives, rehabilitated, back at home. But you can see on the left-hand side that care following, for instance, a mine injury would start with bystander care and with ideally a trained bystander who can provide first aid and link to the emergency care system, the formal ambulance system. So we've introduced the CFAR program. It's a 2-day course that is very skills heavy. It's for lay people or first responders, for example, the police, might be fire service. So each community can decide who their trained responders would be. And it takes the same approach that we take across all of our WHO acute care courses, which is this ABC approach, and then a strong emphasis on trauma and emphasis then on other emergency conditions that you would see that may cause death in patients. So again, this course is very skills heavy. So we do a recognize and manage approach. So this is just how you might deal with, for example, major bleeding or massive hemorrhage, which we'd see commonly with explosive injuries, supported by skills cards so that the providers, the responders can have these things in their pocket and help to refresh and to provide quality care when they're needed. And the other part of the course is to link the responder into the emergency care system. So it's not just about providing first aid at the scene, but it's about taking the patient to safety and getting them into the emergency care system, whether that's taking them to hospital or waiting with them until an ambulance arrives. So a lot of the course is emphasised on when to move patients to the emergency care system, how to do that, and how to do it safely. One of the exciting things about the course is that it links explicitly into all of our other guidance. So for instance, we're just launching now a pre-hospital toolkit aimed at professional ambulance services, and CFAR is the sort of first stepping stone that builds up either into the operational guidance or into the training for the basic ambulance provider. You can see there's a 2-module course. There's operations and there's clinical. And there's 2 clinical pathways. One is our slightly more advanced basic emergency care course, but CFAR is what many emerging ambulance services choose to train their providers on. Just a final word, we have our flagship network to support implementation of our acute care tools globally. We have about 60 partner organisations in this network, ACAN, the Acute Care Action Network, and it has 4 priority areas, one of which is community as users of and providers of emergency care. So the CFAR course is a focus area for ACAN, and we have, as I say, about 60 organisations now working on implementing this globally. Again, very, very happy to have had the opportunity to give you a little bit of information, and Dr. Wild has our contact details if any of you would like to get in touch to find out more. Thanks again.
All right. So I think the scene has been set, the stage has been set for how we came to start this new pilot. On one hand, there's conventional explosive ordnance risk education. On the other hand, there are conventional layperson or CFAR trainings. In fact, this is not new. Some of you may have been around when the Tromso Mine Victim Center in landmine infested regions of Iraq and Cambodia did very similar things. They trained laypersons, they trained pre-hospital providers, and over a 5-year period, they reduced trauma-related mortality from 40%, which unfortunately is still the number today, to 15% in the study area. Despite that success, it's not widely done. So we see that this is not an innovation problem, it's an implementation problem. Because of this, we saw an opportunity to pilot a combined package of explosive ordnance risk education with a CFAR training. So not only prevention through risk education, but also mitigation in the event an incident occurs. Every pilot needs a first pilot site to work out the wrinkles before we try to create a toolkit and tell people that this is a good idea, a tested idea, a feasible idea. And only thanks to our local partners in Burkina Faso has this been possible, also support from MAG. And I just want to say that on our panel today, each of us has our local colleagues with us. We're sad that more of them can't be here in person, and we can't insist enough how impossible this is without them. We're also honored to have Dr. Ahmed with the Syrian White Helmets, and we hope to look for opportunities with all the amazing work they're already doing on casualty care. So to that end, I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Sanu for his contextual information on Burkina.
Mesdames et messieurs, je vous remercie de l'opportunité de partager les efforts du Burkina Faso dans la lutte contre les engins explosifs improvisés. Depuis près d'une décennie, notre pays fait face à une menace croissante des EI utilisés par des groupes terroristes. Ces dispositifs ont causé de nombreuses pertes en vies humaines et matérielles, perturbant la vie quotidienne et entravant le développement socio-économique. L'assistance aux victimes des engins improvisés et des mines antipersonnelles est une priorité essentielle. Les victimes, souvent des civils, nécessitent une prise en charge globale qui inclut des aspects médicaux, psychologiques et socio-économiques. Les efforts déployés dans ces domaines comprennent les soins médicaux d'urgence. La fourniture de soins médicaux aux blessés est cruciale. Cela inclut le transport rapide vers les structures de santé locales, la stabilisation des patients et les interventions chirurgicales nécessaires pour sauver des vies et limiter les séquelles physiques. Il y a la réhabilitation et la réintégration. Les programmes de réhabilitation physique sont essentiels pour aider les survivants à retrouver leur mobilité et leur autonomie. Cela inclut des séances de physiothérapie, la fourniture de prothèses et d'autres dispositifs d'assistance. La réintégration sociale et économique est également primordiale avec des initiatives visant à offrir des formations professionnelles, des opportunités d'emploi et un soutien pour la création d'entreprises. Il y a la sensibilisation et l'éducation. Les campagnes de sensibilisation sont essentielles pour prévenir les incidents futurs. Elles visent à informer les communautés sur les dangers des EI et des mines antipersonnelles, à enseigner les comportements sécuritaires et à promouvoir la vigilance. Ces campagnes peuvent inclure des ateliers de sessions d'information dans les écoles et la distribution de matériel éducatif. Ces efforts combinés que le Burkina Faso est en train de construire et de renforcer visent à offrir une réponse holistique aux besoins des victimes en leur fournissant non seulement des soins médicaux immédiatement nécessaires, mais aussi un soutien à long terme pour leur réhabilitation et leur réintégration dans la société. Et les communautés touchées par les EI voient souvent leurs moyens de subsistance détruits, ce qui exacerbe les conditions de vie déjà précaires et contribue à l'instabilité sociale. Ces défis nécessitent des réponses adaptées et une mobilisation accrue des ressources pour renforcer les capacités nationales et internationales dans la lutte contre les EI. En conclusion, la lutte contre les EI au Burkina Faso nécessite une approche intégrée et coordonnée impliquant tous les acteurs concernés. Il est crucial de renforcer les capacités nationales, de mobiliser les ressources nécessaires et de continuer à sensibiliser les communautés. L'assistance aux victimes doit rester au cœur de nos préoccupations pour garantir leur réhabilitation et leur réintégration dans la société. Je vous remercie pour votre attention et je suis ouvert aux questions et suggestions pour améliorer nos efforts communs dans cette lutte. Je vous remercie.
All right, so in this context, we started our pilot in Burkina, and this pilot had multiple aims. You may not be surprised that we couldn't just take the sprawling WHO CFAR curriculum from childbirth to snake bites and make it feasible and adapted to the context. So we undertook a contextual analysis to adapt this to be feasibly delivered, trauma-specific, focusing on IED victims, and something that could actually be given in an EORE session in the villages. And then we wanted to evaluate the efficacy of the program, and finally create a toolkit that can facilitate dissemination in other contexts. Our contextual analysis, I'm trying to win us a little time here, we conducted in 6 zones that are unfortunately highly affected by IED contamination. We conducted key informant interviews and focus group discussions with everything from internally displaced persons to surgeons. I want to just tell you about the image and quote on this. The truck had been behind a truck that was completely destroyed in an IED incident. They did not have the money to repair their windshield, and so painted it with this flower design instead. This was one of the drivers that we are interviewing and a target for the training, as they are frequently with military convoys. And then just the heartbreaking details that emerged from this type of a live interview. And one of our participants just kept saying, you know, one of the surgeons who was so affected, just there were still bean seeds in his pocket from the victims who were transported to them that had not received any pre-hospital care and could not be saved. Using the outputs of that research, we adapted quite heavily and with their permission, the WHO's curriculum, to conduct this pilot in 2 sites. Now, this is an old map. This is from 2018. Unfortunately, the contamination is affected many more zones than you see here, including the Cascades and the Bukul du Mahun. So we first did training of trainers, so 15 at each site with 30 trainers. And our trainers, we at first had some preoccupations because they didn't even speak French. It was only the local language. But I tell you, I will take them over any of my junior doctors any day. This lady was a spitfire and just picked things up so quickly. Here you see her bossing everybody around, wound packing, skills acquisition. We were so impressed, and a very quick understanding of indications for given maneuvers. And we've recently begun training actually in the villages. And so as Sebastian shared, many of these regions are inaccessible to anybody but the villagers themselves. So we do our quality assurance remotely, with videos and WhatsApp calls. We use multiple evaluation strategies, which is something that has been really missing in prior versions of layperson first responder trainings. Is what we're doing effective or not? So we use knowledge skills, we use knowledge evaluations, we use skills evaluations, incident reporting, and I'm heartbroken to say that in the villages where we've trained trainers, we've already had IED incidents, including this one with children, one of whom did not survive, and then also feedback from our trainees after. These are my brothers. You can't see Fabrice here, but these young doctors are really the heart of our team, and they are completely independent without me now. It's beautiful, and I wish they could be here, but the whole objective is that this soon be turned over to local stakeholders. From the Mine Action side, of course, Colonel Sanu and his team. On the health side, we've recently trained the emergency response unit within the Ministry of Health to have national trainers in each region affected by insecurity. Thank you all so much, and now looking forward to sharing others' experiences piloting similar initiatives.
Then Eric, can you hear us?
Sure. So
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon once again, everyone on the panel and participants. I'll take a few minutes just to contextualize our work in Mozambique before my colleague can come in to sort of build on the work we are doing in terms of first aid. So as far as Mozambique is concerned, maybe as a word of introduction, I think many of the participants might actually know Mozambique for other things, being quite a nice country, of recent, at least being a nice country, tourist destination. And some of these stories may probably have been in history like a few years ago. A few years ago, when we know that Mozambique went through a long civil war that took like 15 years or so, with a lot of civilian casualties along the line. And during the period, actually, MPA was here, especially from the period around the mid-80s, from 1984, doing different things, including assistance to displaced persons, refugees, but also in the 90s, supporting the government of Mozambique in terms of meeting their obligation on anti-personnel mine clearance, which they achieved in 2015. And that was a lot of support that went in with, you know, a lot of work. Mozambique from time to time. I mean, that took around 8 years with from time to time Mozambique requesting for extension and all that, and NPA was there following up and supporting this work until the obligation was met in 2015. At that point, I think everyone thought that was over. It hasn't been the case because from 2017, we've been through and we're still going through another scene of violence with a new insurgency that has been rocking the country in the northern part of the country, the Cabo Delgado province where I'm speaking from. And we're somehow back to square one with these issues re-emerging. And NPA has basically been here. We have scores of displaced people, up to 700,000, with up to 5,000 people dead. And NPA has sort of come back to support the country of Mozambique, to support the civil population that are trapped again in this cycle of violence. And currently, our package that we are offering includes our package, our conflict preparedness and protection intervention, which basically focus on educating the communities about the risks related to ongoing violence, discussing assembly points, discussing potential evacuations, discussing techniques on how to prevent child separations. So it's a range of things that are going on within this kind of intervention, the CPP package. And it's also combined to what other speakers have been talking about, which is explosive ordnance risk education, with the knowledge that in recent months or in recent years, from the last 2-3 years, there's been lots of reports that speak to a new use of explosives within the insurgency in northern Mozambique. This is a new trend in the insurgents. It used to be a little bit different with burning of villages, abductions, killing civilians, but again, there are significant reports of use of explosive within the conflict, which still have to sort of come to real light with more data on how what the picture really looks like. But NPA is taking the step ahead to sort of implement already explosive ordnance risk education, which is on our package. And then realizing that the insurgency is happening in a significantly resource-constrained environment with very limited health facilities, very limited trained people that can offer what we are talking about here, which is first aid within the first minutes, within the moments where people are affected. We've also decided to come up with this first aid package, which my colleague Robin will talk about. So back to you, Robin.
Thank you. I'm going to go a bit quickly through a lot of the things that we do, because all of us work in very similar ways. We collaborate with local partners to be able to implement in difficult regions, and we have a lot of the same structure to our courses. There's a lot of practical and involved practicing for the participants. The difference for us is that NPA is not only a mine action organization. Nationally, we are also in Norway a big part of the rescue service. That means that we have a lot of first aid instructors who already know how to instruct people doing first aid correctly. They have the skills, so we already have a lot of proficiency in the organization. And that's also where I come from, in collaboration with the mine action department. This is a poster summarizing what we were teaching in Mozambique after a needs assessment. It's a simplified version of the same thing. It's still C, A, B, C, D, E. Start with a massive hemorrhage and go through the A, B, C, D, E approach. And then we use, let's see if this thing works for me. Nope. There it is. There it is. And we made a booklet because we think, and a very important part of this, and the same as the others have done here, a very important part is to standardize. It's important for the instructors to know what they're saying, how they're going to do it, and they're going to need to do the same every time to achieve the same results every time. So we made a booklet where they have access to a script. They also have highlighted the information that they need to tell the participants, which the participants needs to know after the course. And then we have illustrations and also methodology, basically so that the instructors know how to teach everything. And we also work after the same TOT principles, so we have trained about 82 instructors in northern Mozambique, and they have conducted a little under 100 first aid sessions, and we have now 2,200 first aiders in Mozambique who have been trained using this course, which is about a day's worth of course. The hope is that we can collaborate more with EXTRACCT and hopefully pilot the trauma CFAR course both in Mozambique but also hopefully in other places. And just to finish, I would like to thank EXTRACCT and all of the other panelists for both doing the great work and also coming here to talk about it. It's important for us to continue the work, and Hannah has provided very good numbers that this matters. It's important to do. Thank you.
All right, so I will actually be giving the floor to my colleague Serti, who has been working, she's the project manager for HI in Thailand for more than a decade. So she's been, she has a great knowledge on the context, and she's going to be doing the introduction. Serti, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank EXTRACCT for invitation, and also Hannah to invite HR for this event. Big thanks to Marie for co-presentation. Myanmar context has long history of the armed violence, have already left extensive legacy of EO contamination. Since 2021, intensified use of explosive weapons, widespread violence have resulted in the massive of population displacement throughout the country. It is estimated that more than 200,000 people are displaced. Several thousand people cross the border to escape for the violence. Civilians stay near the border are vulnerable conflicts, as well as the extremely weather condition, lack of shelter, food, health, support, and also protection, especially most vulnerable, including children, elderly, people with disability. Civilians face daily risks in accessing the farmland, school, health service, as well as the returners to the home to go and get the food and supply. Some are killed, but some are injured and killed by EO and other explosives. Many villages affected by the conflict, and some villages are mass city in the village. Therefore, even the fighting, the children are separated from the parents die, and also the no caregiver. Therefore, explosive ordnance is one of the major threats for the civilian who are displaced people. Since 2021 in Myanmar, increased the contaminated death according to the Lema Monitoring Report in 2023, country with the higher number of EO casualties, with 1052 casualties reported. Each are working in Myanmar border in the camps, and to provide the capacity to the local CBO, and provided EORE awareness, and as well as the assistance of the affected population. Thank you. Over to you, Marie.
Thank you so much, Serti, for this overview of the context. And I join Serti in thanking EXTRACCT, and especially you, Hannah, for inviting us, HI, in this incredible journey, and also today here. So thank you again. So as Serti was mentioning, so there are needs in Myanmar. So we are working on the Thailand side to support populations that are displaced along the border. And earlier this year, in January, we have been conducting a study in Thailand at the border with Myanmar with populations that have been displaced, and to grasp a better understanding on the current needs. So basically what the first step that you did in Burkina Faso, this is where we are. And so I'm not going to expand more on the impact of the EO contamination also for the sake of time. But often, and this is something that came up often during the interviews that we did, is that in few occasions people are hesitating to actually provide support to victims because they're not confident in the way that they could support, and that they're fearing that they would be blamed by the family if they're not doing things properly. And so we've did some analysis, so it's only the initial findings for now that I'm presenting to you, but what we realized when talking with community members, but also with some members from the health, from some medics and from communities and from the camps, we realized that the first responders are typically bystanders, family members, village leaders in some occasions. But most of the time, there is a big tradition of methods that are being used. They're using cloth because there are no there is no material. They are using herbal remedies, for instance, or bamboo stretch. So they're trying to find ways in the absence of materials for either bleeding control or transportation. In many villages, in some of the villages, you have medics and volunteers, but they often lack supplies. They often lack formal training or coordinated protocols. Another issue that we identified is the fact that the transportation methods and the time for people to reach to health facilities is extensive, or between 6 hours and 2 days, depending on the location and how remote the accident took place. And this is even worse during the rainy seasons, which is on a yearly basis, as you know. And so there are a lot of access constraints in Myanmar, and this is also related to so there is the transport time, but it's also about informing the health system that there are needs for ambulances to come in because of the phone networks, for instance, or sometimes because of the fact that there are checkpoints that are preventing people to reach out to the hospital. And so there are some opportunities for strengthening local capacities. A lot of people have reported that they received first aid training, but some have received them more than 10 years ago. And they actually report, we don't feel confident anymore 10 years after. Or they were not specifically related to EO-related injuries. And for those who received recently because of the lack of materials, it was training were mainly relying on visual cues and not so much practice. And so we received from all the participants to the study, we received a strong interest in learning how to safely assist injured person, because this is happening, unfortunately, way too often. And so we received requests for hands-on and practical demonstration and guidance on what to do and what not to do in all these scenarios. So there are needs, definitely, and let's see what comes next. Thank you so much again.
Can you advance? You can pass the command. Tim, online, you're up.
Hiya, okay. I'll just wait till you got my slides up. Okay. So hi, it's just me today, I'm afraid. Dr. Mervat, our recently recruited Chief Medical Officer inside Syria for Halo Syria, is not able to make it, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm Tim, I'm the head of medical for the Halo Trust. I'm a paramedic by background, although I came to that after a few years of working in the military and humanitarian sort of EOD mine action field. So if you just move on to the next slide, please, Hannah. So I'm just going to give an overview of where we're at in Syria. You possibly heard some of this elsewhere at the conference this week, but Just to say, Syria remains one of the most mine-affected countries in the world. It has millions of civilians, especially children, displaced families and returnees at ongoing risk. And the collapse of the regime last year has really deepened that humanitarian, economic and security challenges. The true extent of the contamination actually remains unknown, as no comprehensive sort of nationwide survey has been conducted. But verified data from HALO reports nearly 800 deaths and injuries just in the week since the regime fell, with nearly a third of them being children. It's a significant increase from 2023, where over 933 casualties were reported across the year. So that collapse triggered a surge in population movements. Nearly 210,000 Syrians have returned and 627,000 remaining displaced. Many of these individuals re-entered areas that are riddled with unmarked explosive contamination, particularly in the former frontline zones, and with a lot of that being agricultural and residential areas, and over half the population at risk of acute food insecurity. I was out in Syria last month, and you can stand in our minefields near Idlib and see recently deceased livestock all around you, with shepherds still using the land to graze their animals just out of sheer economic necessity. And that return of IDPs and refugees in 2025 is having all the consequences that we'd expect. They're just re-entering these areas that are full of contamination. And our program manager in Syria has described it recently as carnage, which it does feel like when you're hearing the reports every day of what's happening. So I'm not going to talk about the wider stuff that HALO Syria is doing there, but just in terms of the community first aid responding, the plans that we've got for that. So far, following the liberation of the country and the rise of the accidents, HALO's risk education teams have been prioritising IDP camps. And additionally, HALO's EORE team leaders and deputy leaders have provided online and in-person EORE briefings. Those safety briefings have been targeting NGO workers who might be travelling to newly liberated areas, equipping them with that knowledge. But the risk education campaign is ongoing also with the social media channels of an organisation called Shafak, which is a Syrian NGO. And we've got two of our own risk education teams, with more intended to be recruited soon. So as we've heard, the curriculum for the CFAR is more or less ready to go. And we're shortly going to be commencing a qualitative contextual analysis via our EORE teams. And once that contextual analysis is complete, which shouldn't take long, and the curriculum is finalised and translated, I'm hoping to be heading back to Syria in the summer to do the initial trainer-trainer sessions for the EORE staff, so that they can begin implementing this in their EORE sessions. I really hope to see this happening by the middle of summer. We've got really excellent community relations in northwest Syria, a really strong network within the local healthcare facilities, and we've recently recruited Dr. Mervat, who can't be here today, but she's a really experienced emergency medicine doctor from Aleppo. So we'll be leveraging these contacts and their experience to push the project forward, make it a success. I really believe it's going to save lives, as one day just going to become common practice for HMA operators to be delivering this kind of training. Yeah, I think you've already gone past my references, but yeah, just onto the last slide. This seems to me to be such a no-brainer. I heard Sebastian mention earlier that it was talked about like 20 years ago. That was before my time in humanitarian mine action, but I can't believe that this isn't common practice across all mine action operators these days. I really want to see this become standard practice, especially in HALO across all of our programs. So really hopeful that this is going to go well in Syria this year. And if there's anything I can ever do to help any other organisations or ways in which we can collaborate further, then please reach out to me. Hannah's got my contact details, and also fairly easy to reach on LinkedIn. And yeah, thank you to the other panelists and those of you in the room.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you. So I think we've heard from 5 different mine action operators, and hopefully the time is ripe for this to start becoming a standard practice with adequate technical advisory input from health organizations. Christelle, can I ask you to moderate Q&A? We have about 10 minutes for Q&A before some closing remarks. Thank you.
So please, the gentleman here, and then we'll go to maybe Sadiq from Sudan, if you like to take the floor. And yeah, whoever else, and Anna, who has been working on victim assistance for a long time and is now with the International Medical Corps. But first with you. Mr. And if you could introduce you, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Abubakar Abdullahi. I work for SenseCorp. SenseCorp means the Center for Social Cohesion, Peace and Empowerment from Nigeria. So we operate in Nigeria in the northeastern sub-region. We implement both the EORE and victim assistance programming. And the expectations I actually have to hear from these presentations are the challenges we face in the delivery of services to victims. One practical example we encounter in Nigeria is when you have a victim that is having multiplicity of requests. For example, a victim has a medical, psychosocial, socio-economic, and education request, for example, or needs. How do we deal with these issues, putting in mind that some of these requests take longer time to be able to be addressed, for example, like medical-related needs. We have had encounters where a victim would require to undergo a surgery, and the victim will need to be in the hospital for a minimum of 3 months, for example, and afterwards they go to the prosthesis, which is under the ICRC, which also takes another longer period of time. Afterwards, the victim requires socio-economic support, and in the minimum expectation of victims is to be able to deliver those services or those needs. That will really help in promoting their well-being. In the event we are unable to deliver some of these services as a result of constraint or as a result of any bureaucratic impediments, it tends to compound on the trauma of the victim. So in your experience, have you had situations where victims require multiple needs? And how do you deal with that in the event you are unable to provide some of these needs? We've also had experiences where a victim would say, I'm no longer interested in the service because it takes longer time. I quietly agree that the first aid services will support in relieving the trauma, but we have incidences where victims have their accidents for a long period of time. And as a result of that, we, at a later time, were able to discover them as a result of availability of funding, and the interaction with these victims becomes constraining and challenging. And another practical example I will cite to you is we've identified a couple number of victims, and we've referred them to the agency of government that is saddled with the responsibility to providing some of this support. And it takes about 3 months for the agency of government to respond and tell us that we're okay, can you come, our doors are now open, we can have a conversation on how to deal with these issues. And out there at home, the victims are being traumatized.
Look, I completely understand your frustration, and victim assistance requires a continuum of multi-sectoral assistance. That's why we advocate for case management. You have a social worker or somebody who is appointed to help this victim get access to everything she or he needs, and it's different for children and adults. Here today, we are just looking at the first little piece of victim assistance, which is about making sure they actually survive the accident in the first few hours after the accident. So I think we can have a further discussion on that because it's very important, but right now, let's focus on our current topic. I will go to Anna.
Thank you. My name is Hannah. I am a victim assistance specialist. First of all, I would like to thank the panelists who said that we can invest in the medical specialist in the team, not only to take care of the safety of the deminers, but also to work with us, with the victims. Also, I would like to say that we have a great challenge within the victim assistance activities, which is surgeries, especially the corrective surgeries. When you talk to the mine action partners, they said this is WHO mandate, not ours. When you talk to WHO, they said this is under mine action because he's a victim, EO victim. So I don't know if WHO is considering surgeries for mine victims as part of their physical trauma program in general, not in special countries. This is one issue. And the other one, in Syria, for instance, we have a great challenge of having the amputation in the public hospitals because it's very overloaded, public hospitals, and unfortunately lack a relative level of decontamination and things like that. So I know several victims who went into the hospital with an below knee amputation and end up with a high upper knee amputation because they have repeated surgeries because of the contamination. So if a kind of training would be also directed to the public health surgeons about this, I don't know through which sector, is it through WHO or is it through victim assistance, but it's really needed in Syria from my observations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Would you like to take this question?
Sure, thank you for your remarks. I cannot speak on behalf of WHO. I do collaborate with them on development of open access trauma surgery at the district hospital modules that would be highly appropriate for such a situation. I think there's really a Venn diagram. There are different amounts of overlap between mine action and health. At the community level, there's a lot of overlap. At the pre-hospital level, there's a little less overlap, but still a lot of overlap. At the hospital level, you know, there are certain activities where mine action medics could benefit from refresher trainings, but none of them are going to be conducting surgical programs. So personally, as a surgeon, that's an area of interest for me. Happy to exchange further because we do have a lot of amputation guidance from our orthopedic colleagues, and I'd be very interested in speaking with you. I hope that addresses the question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe anyone else wants to complement this answer? Catherine, you want to provide your viewpoint? Catherine, well, introduce yourself, Catherine.
Hi, I'm Katrine Finsness. I'm the medical advisor for the Weapon Contamination Unit in ICRC. Now, I don't have any questions as I've had the pleasure to be able to exchange on the side, but I want to congratulate you on the amazing efforts that all of you have been doing. It's fantastic to see that it's possible to be able to find the sweet spot in the Venn diagram that Hannah Weil just referred to, because it is indeed complicated when you're going between even not just between the sectors per se, but between mandates and organizations and even within organizations. So it's good to be able to get the synergies where we have them. Thank you.
I forgot, I have something to add to myself. We are developing a guideline of a library of clinical practice guidelines. It's the backbone of our military's joint trauma system, but it's adapted for military personnel. EXTRACCT is currently doing this for low resource blast injury for local casualties, everything from amputation to thoracic trauma. And so I'll be sharing that information with certainly Christelle, and happy to take her contact after. Thank you.
And just one more idea. I mean, unfortunately, we have to wait another year, and I know you need it much faster than that. But when you do the evaluation of the NDM, you can give feedback on topics you'd like us to address next year. So we can definitely try to prepare a session on this, on the surgery, and we'll invite people from WHO and other medical organizations to talk about this. Now let's go to Sadiq with the UNMAS chief in Sudan.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to see this side event. I think focusing on a very important topic, an activity that I think there are a lot of potentials within the mine action programs that we could do. I fully agree with what Sebastian mentioned. Within the clearance team, there are medical personnel, and they can certainly do more. In terms of needs, I think I don't think we have done a lot. We haven't done. We could have. The programs could have trained more people. Now, just to highlight this, there are so many communities that are affected. They are far away from the health facilities. There are no, medical staff, trained medical staff to help those people who are going to be injured by the explosions. And now even in the cities, now we are talking about lots of contamination. Now it's happening in the urban environments. For example, I'm coming from Sudan, and 70 to 80% of all the hospitals and clinics are all destroyed by war. So there are not very limited professional health facilities to help. And there are huge contamination in thousands of houses in the residential areas. So I really appreciate the efforts, and I think this should be expanded, and we need to do more on this.
Yeah, I just thought it helps maybe to also talk about the risk education and the first aid. So it's not that we want to mix risk education with first aid training, and it's to have mix it all in one. No. Why this linkage? And you saw the pictures. If we reach these villages, they haven't had really proper risk education before. So we don't want to just have one session on first aid. No, it comes linked to IED attacks and what they are living, and so that's the background. So if you look at it from a preventive health point of view, risk education is prevention as well. And then the practical first aid is prevention. And then we can link it to the community health workers and the government system that's in the health sector. So we get out of our silos, working only in Mine Action, but we reach out also to the health side. I think that was a little bit lacking. I forgot to put it into my presentation properly. Thanks.
Thank you all. And we're starting to speak with colleagues in Sudan, including Sudanese physicians. And
I was using the image of, planting a seed and then having flowers blooming. Now we need little bees for pollination so that it goes to Sudan and other countries that are here. And I hope you will be either willing to be a flower or a bee. I was behind the plenary on the environment and, a greener, sustainable future. So please.
Not on windscreens, maybe.
No. All right, let's. We finish.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup pour l'honneur que vous m'avez fait. Through the sharing and experience exchange we had, we really realized that it's possible to save lives by vital first aid training to the communities. Because each life saved, each skill shared, each hand extended in support becomes a victory against fear and despair. So let us leave this room with a shared determination to transform tragedy into resilience and vulnerability into strength. The work ahead still immense, but together we think that we are unstoppable. Thank you to EXTRACCT for the work well done, and let's keep moving forward with purpose and hope.
Thank you.